Where God Likes to Be is a story of family, culture, and identity on a Blackfeet reservation. Here to discuss the different choices that Andy, Edward, and Doug made is Dr. Adrienne Keene, professor at Brown University, author of the blog Native Appropriations, and member of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. Dr. Keene, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
In the film, we see Andy Running Wolf right at the beginning of her college journey. Your work is focused on the transition from Native students to college and the dual identity that many of these American Indian students feel. Can you explain that to us?
I think for us as Native peoples, we carry with us our entire communities when we go to college. There's a lot of conversations about your college degree being a means for you to give back to your community. It creates a lot of strength for students to have that support of their community, but also a lot of challenges, as well as entering into these environments where they're one of only a few Native students. They are going to encounter faculty members and other students who've never met a Native person before and don't have any context for understanding what that actually means in that environment.
In the film, we see Doug chooses to pursue a more traditional path. Ed is still looking for the right opportunities, and then you see Andy decides to pursue higher education. Mm-hmm. We know that more Native American women do decide to go to college. Why is that?
Historically, in our communities, women have been the ones who are holding the community together, are the ones who have a lot of power and control and have a very different sort of relationship with the community than Western communities do. And so I see this education journey as an extension of that, of the power of women in our communities, the ones to carry things forward, carry forward the culture, carry forward the leadership, things like that. But it creates a large problem because our young men are not going to college at the same rates. They really don't have a lot of the same opportunities that the young women do. I argue that every student needs to be able to see that as a possible alternative for them, as a possible path, but that it's not necessarily the perfect path for everyone. And I think seeing the two young men and the conflicts around trying to figure out your place and what that is, those are very authentic experiences to any young people.
And I thought Doug's character was really interesting. He makes the choice to stay home because he wants to continue his cultural traditions. Does it have to be one way or the other?
I don't think that it has to be one or the other. I know for myself and for a lot of other Native students, I didn't grow up on a reservation, but that experience of going away to college was what inspired me to become even more connected with my own community, because I started to see the value of my own culture and the strength behind it.
What about students that are reintegrating into the tribal community after college? Is that difficult?
Absolutely. That is, I think, the biggest challenge that we have in communities right now. We are really good at encouraging our students to go to college and, in some ways, really good at supporting them to get through. There are still tensions in the community about feeling that when you go off to college, you somehow lose a piece of your identity and aren't as connected back home. The history of formalized education in Indian country, going back to the government-run boarding schools in the 1800s, where Native children were forcibly taken from their homes. They were sent to these schools where their culture was stripped from them. They weren't allowed to speak their native languages. They weren't allowed to return home to visit their families. And the whole sort of professed goal of these schools was to kill the Indian and save the man. My grandmother went to a boarding school, so it's not that many generations back. There's still that legacy that is very real in our communities, that when you go away, you lose your culture. Those who can see their culture as a source of strength rather than something in conflict with the university environment are the ones who are able to be more successful.
What are some of the skills that these students can bring back to their tribal communities?
The reality is we're sovereign nations and we have modern, contemporary, robust tribal governments. We're managing millions and millions of dollars of casino revenues, of federal grants, of other economic development. And these are complex issues that need well-educated citizens to be able to take control over those, to be able to have our own citizens to be able to do that, who understand the cultural context, who understand the community and the family is really important. this sort of nation building model that the students can bring back those skills to be able to implement them through their lens of cultural understanding that they have from being a part of that community.
To become leaders in their community.
Absolutely.
Dr. Adrienne Keene, thank you so much for coming here and sharing your insights about Native American students.
Thank you so much for having me.